Welcome, everyone. It's great to be with you tonight. We'll be discussing a very interesting topic: anxiety, depression, and mental health, an integrative Ayurveda perspective. And we'll be talking about cultivating mental health in a very holistic and the most fundamental way. We'll be tying that discussion in with some notes about our fellowship in Integrative Medicine and Ayurveda. And tonight's program is really intended to give you a little bit of a taste, a little bit of a flavor for what our fellowship is about. So we'll go through some of the content and talk about our program. We've got some of our extremely knowledgeable faculty with us today. We have one of our fellows with us today to share her experience. And then when we're done with all of that, we'll have time for questions and answers. So if you do have questions, there's two ways. We'll hold the questions till the end, but if you do want to ask a question, you can either raise your hand or there is a Q&A icon at the bottom. You can enter your questions there, and we'll pick up your questions once we're done about a half hour from now and have plenty of time to review and answer all your questions. So our fellowship program is very unique. It's the first integrative medicine fellowship in North America with a focus on Ayurveda. It's a 2-year distance learning program, and the training leads to an MS degree. This program is specifically geared toward licensed healthcare practitioners, physicians, and advanced practice practitioners, nurse practitioners, PAs. MIU has other degree programs in Ayurveda as well. This is one of a whole handful of degree programs, and those of you who are interested in Ayurvedic training, please listen closely to the webinar. And there is a second program, MAVM. It's a master's program like this for people who are not licensed healthcare practitioners. That's a 3-year program. This program is for 2 years, and as mentioned, leads to an MS degree. And then the physicians who successfully complete the program are eligible to sit the exam, the certification exam offered by the American Board of Integrative Medicine. And two things I'll say about the emphasis in our program. Number one, it's very practical, very practical. So skills that you learn, you can immediately put into practice, and the program is set up so that you can stay in practice while you do your fellowship training. And number two, we have a very strong emphasis on self-care. So we learn to meditate. All of our fellows learn the TM technique, transcendental meditation, the diet, the daily routine, the exercise, the herbals, all of these things. We learn how to take care of ourselves. And then as we have that personal experience of good health and holistic health offered by this approach, it's only natural for us to want to share that and to easily integrate that into our practice. Okay, so when we look at mental health and well-being from an integrative medicine standpoint, there are a lot of things that we can consider. Of course, there are conventional treatments, including medications and counseling. But then you can see on this slide, there's a large number of modalities with which both general integrative medicine and Ayurveda take advantage of, including addressing the spiritual components of care, exercise, social connections, mind-body connections, dietary supplements, sleep, and nutrition. And you'll hear a lot about these from my colleagues in a few minutes. So from the Ayurvedic perspective, we have a unique perspective that helps us to take that suite of holistic interventions and to implement them in creative ways, sort of new and creative ways. Now, here we see the 8-fold structure of natural law, according to Ayurveda, and we see these elements and other components which correspond to different organ systems. There are 8 organ systems, according to Ayurveda, in the physiology, and the earth element corresponds with the musculoskeletal system. The water element corresponds with the cardiovascular system. The fire element corresponds with the digestive system. The air element corresponds with the rheumatologic system, the respiratory system. The space element corresponds with the rheumatologic system, the joints. And then mind, manas, intellect, buddhi, and ego, those three components each contribute to what we think about generally in conventional medicine as mind. In Ayurveda, the mind per se, manas, is specifically refers to processing, knowing, and thinking. And it actually corresponds to the endocrine system, because the endocrine system does the processing, takes care, gets things done in terms of processing knowledge in our physiology. The intellect in Ayurveda corresponds with the immune system, because the intellect is involved with discriminating self from non-self. And the ego component corresponds with the nervous system. And this is probably the piece of these three that's most closely linked with this idea of mental health, because the ego involves the individualization, the sense of self. Now, what is mental health then? Mental health is balanced thinking, perceiving, and feeling. Okay, so we'll be talking a little bit more about balance of the doshas, these psychometabolic or psychophysiologic principles which govern our physiology. And oftentimes, anxiety can be a symptom of vata imbalance of the vata dosha. And mental health depends on the level of purity of mind or sattva. So in general, and we'll talk about sattva in just a moment. In general, to optimize mental health, we need to cultivate this purity of mind called sattva. We'll talk about it in just a second. The etiology of anxiety disorders is, very broadly speaking, vata imbalance, whereas the etiology of depression represents an excess tamasic influence, tamas or tamasic being the opposite of sattva. So in a word, our analysis and therapeutics in Ayurveda for mental health disorders focuses in these areas. And we'll be talking in just a few minutes about some very specific modalities for optimizing sattva and for balancing vata and the like. Now, what are these three qualities of the mind, sattva, rajas, and tamas? These are very important when we're considering mental health. So sattva is purity, calmness, maintenance of universal balance, that which is simple, natural, life-supporting, evolutionary, and righteous. All of this is considered to be sattvic. Individual intellect and mind, dominated by sattva, is strong and self-sufficient in all undertakings. It is free from pragya aparad, which is the mistake of the intellect, where the individual intellect is not aware of its cosmic status. So we said that the ego, the nervous system, the ego is individualization or a sense of self. But when that sense of self loses sight of its connection to the cosmic self, this is where mental health problems set in, and is in fact the root of all disease, pragya aparad, according to Ayurveda. So with a sattvic mind, there's freedom from mistakes. Life is in accord with natural law, and our mind and physiology are disease-free. Rajas is the creative power. When on its own and not guided by sattva, rajas becomes impure and predisposes to pride, ego, anger, jealousy, passion, etc. Individual intellect and mind dominated by rajas is medium in strength. It is subject to the mistake of the intellect, and it complicates daily living with pride, egotism, anger, passion, etc. It prompts the individual to adopt habits that cause short-term pleasure, but an unhappiness and disease in the long run. So a person who's sattvic, mind is dominated by sattva, they walk in the room, they're sweet, they're wholesome, and uplifting. People who are dominated by rajas, if you're working with them, there's a lot of ego involved, a lot of ego and intensity and pride, and those are rajasic qualities. Tamas is the destructive power. So a sattvic person, someone with a lot of sattva, walks in the room, you feel uplifted. And tamas, the opposite, someone walks in the room and they're going to drag you down. It is impure and predisposes to ignorance, darkness, inertia, and depression. So one of the causes of depression will be excess influence of tamas in the mind. Individual intellect and mind dominated by tamas is weak, always depending on support from the outside. It is subject to pragya parad and complicates daily living with ignorance, inertia, depression, and prompts the individual to speak out of context, not in accordance with time and place, and in a destructive way to the environment and to oneself. It keeps one stuck. So having said all this, so we have this idea of needing to balance the doshas, especially vata in terms of anxiety, promote sattva, and let's talk about some of the practical, we said our fellowship is very practical, so let's talk about some of the practical approaches to doing this, and I'll turn the baton over to Dr. Sankari Wegman, who will talk about some of those modalities.
Thank you so much, Dr. Charles. That was wonderful. And I'm so excited to be here and talk a little bit more about these different modalities that Dr. Charles was mentioning. So just to start out with, when we're talking about Ayurveda, what is Ayurveda really? It's, as Dr. Charles was saying, it's a prevention-oriented, holistic approach for whole person care. And just this word Ayurveda, some of you might know how it's broken down. It's broken down into two words, Ayu and Veda. Ayu meaning life and lifespan, and Veda meaning knowledge. So sometimes it's translated as the science of life and lifespan, the knowledge of life and lifespan. And what it allows is to really understand the fullness of what we mean by health and well-being. Just the definition of life from Ayurveda shows this encapsulation of where mind is rooted. It's not something that's outside, it's part of this very definition. So Ayurveda looks at these different aspects as this union, a blissful union of body, mind, senses, and the self. This blissful union is understood to be that definition of life. So if any one area is impacted, then all the other areas will also be impacted. Anything that's happening to the body immediately affects the mind. Anything happening to the mind affects the body, the senses, even that sense of self. So when we're talking about mind, we're always incorporating everything else as well. And this is why we say it's a multimodality approach. So I'll be talking a little bit about the mind-body techniques, a little bit about daily routine lifestyle. And then my colleague, Dr. Leslie Elder, will continue and talk about the approaches through diet, 5 sense therapies, and herbal supplements for health and well-being. So let's start with mind-body techniques. As Dr. Charles said, everyone in our fellowship meditates. We recommend the Transcendental Meditation technique, and all of our faculty and fellows practice this effortless mental technique. Transcendental meditation is one of the most widely practiced and also one of the most widely researched meditation techniques, with hundreds of published studies. Over 4 decades, there's been hundreds of published studies, and it's a very simple, natural, effortless procedure. And it's practiced for about 20 minutes, sitting comfortably twice a day with the eyes closed. And it allows for the activity of the mind to settle into quieter and quieter levels of activity until the mind transcends activity altogether to a state of silent rest, the source of thought, or pure consciousness. And we can see in this diagram that, like the ocean, the mind is active at its surface level, and TM systematically brings the mind from more that active surface level to a state of deep rest. And it's really this state of deep rest that is the key for enhanced physiological functioning, enhanced psychological well-being, a profound release of stress, rejuvenation, and also just that decrease of incidence of any kind of diseases, imbalances. And stress really has that direct impact on our state of health and well-being. And incorporating the TM technique has been shown to have a wide range of benefits because it reduces physical stress, emotional stress, mental stress through this deep practice of deep rest that is enjoyed in this practice. One of the studies I'd like to bring out is a study that is titled Effects of the Transcendental Meditation Technique on Trait Anxiety, a meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials, published in the Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicine in 2013. And this study examined the impact of TM, or Transcendental Meditation, on trait anxiety. This meta-analysis, it included 16 randomized controlled trials with a total of 1,300 subjects from various demographics. And the findings indicate that TM significantly reduces trait anxiety, particularly individuals with high initial levels of anxiety. So for those who were in the 90th percentile of anxiety, TM reduced anxiety levels to the 57th percentile. And this forest plot shown here summarizes the studies comparing TM to other active treatments. And you can see that the diamond in the bottom row is to the left of the midline, suggesting an overall statistical advantage to TM. And the study also found that the effects of TM are not attributable to any kind of placebo effects, as the benefits are lasting and including objective health improvements such as reduced heart attacks and strokes. So overall, this meta-analysis really shows that TM is an effective method for reducing trait anxiety and improving overall health. Another mind-body technique is that of yoga. Yoga has become very popular in the West in the last few decades. And this word yoga means union. It's that union of mind and body. And in what we practice here is Marshi Yogasanas. And Marshi Yogasanas, in contrast with other yoga practices, involves, they involve some degree of effort. Marshi Yogasanas is a very simple and slow, comfortable practice, and there's no strain that's required. The aim of this set of yogasanas is to turn the attention within very naturally. And between each asana, or between each pose, there is a resting pose, which helps to normalize breathing, normalize circulation. It allows for that settling of the mind and body. And the eyes are just easily closed, and the sensation is on the body very, very gently. And what practitioners usually experience is a letting go or a momentary expansion of awareness, which we can really see signifies that union of mind and body. A study that was done in 2018 on Marshi Yogasana specifically looked at mood states, happiness, and also experiences during meditation. It was published in the International Journal of Yoga. And what it looked at was a 4-week investigation on Marshi Yogasanas. And it had 13 participants in the Marshi Yogasana course and 13 in a control group taking another course. And the study looked at psychological assessments, including profile mood states, happiness scales, and meditation depth questionnaire to measure the outcomes. And what the results indicated were that participants in the yoga course experienced significant improvements in mood, increased happiness, as well as enhanced experiences in their meditation as compared with the control group. So the findings really suggest that Marshi Yogasanas can effectively enhance emotional well-being and also deepen meditative experiences. Going into daily routine, this role of daily routine to mental and emotional well-being is really foundational in Ayurveda. It's one of the pillars of Ayurveda. And especially we want to look at the role of sleep, of our sleep routine. Insomnia is often linked with anxiety and depression, with about 40 to 50% of those affected having another sort of mental disorder, according to the American Psychiatric Association. Insomnia increases the risk of depression, anxiety, as well as substance abuses, and it often precedes these conditions. So proper sleep routine and addressing sleep issues are really crucial for mental and emotional well-being. And as Dr. Charles had mentioned in the beginning, there are these three doshas in Ayurveda: Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And we want to look at this in terms of the daily routine. So just to talk a little bit about these doshas can be understood as bioprinciples that are governing different aspects or different functions in the physiology based on their elemental makeup. In Ayurveda, there are 5 elements, and each of the doshas are made up of 2 of these 5 elements. So Vata dosha is made up of space and air. Pitta dosha is made up of fire and water. And Kapha dosha is made up of earth and water. We can say that Vata is primarily made up of air, Pitta of fire, and Kapha of earth. So it can be translated in a way that Vata is the lightest dosha. It's made up of space and air, mainly air. Pitta is that fiery dosha, made up of primarily fire and also water. And Kapha is the heaviest dosha, made up of earth and water. In the physiology, Vata is governing movement, movement of thoughts, circulation, transportation. Pitta is governing digestion, metabolism, transformation. It's also that value that's helping us digest our emotions, digest anything coming in through our senses. And Kapha is governing that value of structure. It's maintaining the integrity of our whole physiology. This understanding of the doshas is also expanded to the environment around us, and we see that the doshas are predominant at different times of the day. And this is that understanding of daily routine that Ayurveda has, that it's not only that we're eating healthy, we're on a good sleep routine, we're exercising well, but when we're doing those things also has a very subtle effect on our health and well-being. So taking advantage of knowing when the doshas are more predominant allows those functions that they're governing in the physiology to run effectively, and we then enjoy all those results. So for example, if we look at this diagram, we can see in a 24-hour day, Ayurveda breaks down this understanding of when the doshas are more predominant into 6 to 4-hour chunks. So for example, we can see that Vata dosha is more predominant from 2 to 6 in the morning and 2 to 6 in the evening. We can see that Kapha dosha is more predominant from 6 to 10 in the morning and 6 to 10 in the evening. And Pitta dosha is right in the middle of the day from 10 to 2, and also right in the middle of the night from 10 to 2. So when we look at sleep, Ayurveda recommends that we go to sleep before 10 p.m. This again, now Kapha dosha is more predominant in the evening. Kapha is that heavier dosha. So the qualities of heaviness, that more stability, that deep quality of Kapha allows for those qualities to be enjoyed in sleep. So Ayurveda recommends to go to bed before 10 p.m. to take advantage of those Kapha qualities coming into our sleep. It also recommends that we wake up before 6 p.m. So that those qualities of Vata, that lighter dosha, are what we're enjoying during the day. So during the day, we can have more of these light, that clear, enthusiastic qualities of Vata dosha. So when we're, going to bed before 10, what Ayurveda recommends is just to have a lighter dinner so that it's not affecting our sleep, that we start to dim everything, turn everything off around 8:30, 9 p.m. so that we can start to gradually transition into sleep. We can just have some relaxed evening activity, get ready for bed in a very simple, easy way. And there's so many different recommendations along with this that Ayurveda recommends just for that easy transition into sleep. There's many different sleep issues that can come up based on the doshas. For example, if someone is having trouble falling asleep, this is understood that there's something going on with Vata dosha, that there's some imbalance there, that Vata is active. Again, Vata is governing movement, so movement of thoughts, that inability to just turn off and just kind of settle into sleep. So any kind of disturbance going into sleep or having trouble falling asleep is more of a Vata imbalance. if someone is waking up in the middle of the night, they fall asleep fine, but in the middle of the night, they wake up and can't go back to sleep, there might be something that's going on with Pitta dosha. As again, Pitta is governing just that middle part of the night. And if someone is having a hard time, waking up in the morning, they might be fine through this, but they just are so tired, they can't really seem to wake up in the morning. There might be something going on with Kapha dosha. So again, we personalize everything depending on the person, and look at these different imbalances and suggest things to balance Vata or Pitta or Kapha in the wholeness of also looking at their diet, also looking at what they're doing in terms of their lifestyle, and put together recommendations that are going to help maintain balance of all three doshas, and then also specifically what might be out of balance. And to continue this conversation, I'd like to invite my colleague, Dr. Leslie Elder, to continue and talk a little bit more about how diet, the five senses, and also herbal supplements can help enhance our emotional and mental well-being.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wegman, for your beautiful discussion about TM and sleep. So I'm going to be talking about, and I think all of us are talking about, are focusing on how to improve our mental health by increasing the amount of sattva in our mind and in our consciousness. So I'm going to talk about how to do this using diet and other aspects of the daily routine and behavior. Everyone's heard the saying, "You are what you eat." This is a very true statement, and this is something that we really take to heart in Ayurveda. And to illustrate this principle, I'm just going to tell a little story, an old story about the elephant, the tiger, and the jackal. So the elephant is a pure vegetarian. He's strong and gentle enough to work well in a human environment. The elephant represents the sattvic mind. The tiger represents the rajasic nature. He kills and eats other animals, and his rajasic nature makes him fierce and aggressive. Restless and strong, he's always on the prowl. The jackal symbolizes the tamasic mind. He's cunning, fearful, and lazy. He shuns daylight and survives on food left over by other animals. So we really should try to acquire the sattvic qualities of the elephant. And we can do this by keeping with the following guidelines. We really, in Ayurveda, we recommend favoring a lacto-vegetarian diet. Light foods such as fresh cooked vegetables, sweet fruits, cooked grains, mung dal and almonds, and milk. Also milk. Milk should always be boiled first, then eaten by itself or with sweet foods like breakfast foods. But all of these foods increase the qualities of sattva in our consciousness. Using ghee is recommended for cooking. Ghee is considered to be the finest oil for cooking. It has medicinal qualities. It's extolled in Ayurveda as being just such a life-giving substance. It lubricates the tissues, and it helps the nutrients to be absorbed, the nutrients of your food to be absorbed. We want to avoid leftovers, microwaving, avoid processed, artificially colored foods, canned foods, frozen foods, as they increased ama. Ama is something we really strive to reduce in Ayurveda, because ama is the toxic byproduct of improper digestion. So we want to increase sattva and decrease ama. I think right now I need my slide, the first slide, please. So here we have, you see on the left, sattvic foods, rajasic foods, tamasic foods. Sattvic foods provide energy without taxing the digestion and nourish the mind. And as I said, A vegetarian diet is considered optimal. Simple, seasonal, fresh, light, sweet, juicy, flavorful, organic, on-pressed foods. And I went over already some of the examples of these foods. Rajasic foods have strongly stimulating qualities. Spicy foods, salty foods, very sour foods, heating or dry foods fall into this category. Caffeinated drinks, coffee, sodas, chocolate, deep fried foods, extremely spicy foods, chili peppers, fermented foods. Those are examples of rajasic foods. Then we have the tamasic foods, which are difficult to digest. They decrease your energy and cloud the mind. They're heavy, oily, and dense. And examples of tamasic foods are red meat, hard cheeses, eggs, refined grains, anything that's been processed, canned, frozen, overcooked, sugar, fast foods, leftovers, stale foods, microwaved foods, mushrooms, most vegetables that grow in the ground, like peanuts and potatoes, are considered tamasic. And garlic and onion are tamasic. Alcohol, preservatives, and artificial sweeteners. We want to, for the most part, avoid these foods. We need to have a balance, however. I mean, we're going to have, some of these foods, but it's good to emphasize sattvic foods. Okay, you can get rid of that slide. Like I said, we recommend eating cooked foods instead of raw. Raw salads they're so hard to digest that it's not considered to be really worthwhile to eat anything more than a very small salad. It's just too hard to digest and you don't get the benefits. Lunch should be your main meal of the day because our digestive fire is highest at noon when the sun is at its peak in the sky. We want to avoid fermented foods such as vinegar, ketchup, and alcohol, like I said, since these increase tamas or dullness of the mind. So next I'm going to talk about lifestyle and how to follow a sattvic lifestyle to increase the sattvic quality of your mind. And this is where Ayurveda really shines because there's so many modalities, like Dr. Wegman was talking about. There's so many different modalities that we use to increase sattva. And she talked about TM, which is really way up there on the list, number one, and also sleep, so important. I'm going to talk about some other modalities, some other that you can follow in daily routine. First, I'm going to tell a little story, another story about, just to give an example of these different states of mind and the way having these different states of mind, like the sattvic mind, the rajasic mind, the tamasic mind, how they affect your behavior. So there's a story of 3 people riding on a train. And the train catches fire. One is with a sattvic mind. The next is an individual with a rajasic mind. And the third is a person with a tamasic mind. So the train catches fire. What to do? Okay, the tamasic mind, because it's dull and weak, causes the person to either faint or panic. The rajasic mind, a person with a rajasic mind, naturally relies on action. And so he or she immediately starts running for the nearest exit or the fire extinguisher, just taking action right away, maybe without pausing to think. The person with the sattvic mind, being calm and steady, takes a moment to analyze the situation and acts only after weighing the right response. So, each of us is born with one or more dominating guna, one of these the guna of the mind, these qualities of the mind. And so it's really in our power to increase the guna we want, this quality, increase the quality we want. So we want to increase this sattvic quality so that we will be able to, when we're challenged by some stress, we will be able to pause and to, choose the right course of action. So we're going to go through some sattva building activities. First, like I said, there's TM and also proper sleep. But a very important thing is to focus in your life on activities that bring you joy. And ideally, the type of work you do brings you joy. And if it doesn't, then you might start thinking about maybe changing your direction and gravitating towards something that brings you joy. Because then if you do something that you're loving, then it's so much less stressful. Even if it's hard, it might be hard, but it's less stressful. And it's a way of building that sattvic quality when you're radiating that joy and enjoying what you're doing. Activities like gardening, spending time with children, creative activities, these also increase the sattva. Also, just even the clothes you wear, wearing light, clean, light-colored clothing and avoiding very dark colors like black, for example. This is another way of building sattva. Of course, you can wear dark colors sometimes, but just favor the lighter colors. It's very important to have the room that you're spending most of your time in to be in an uplifting environment. So having fresh flowers really can be a mood booster. Just fresh flowers just in your room. Having some aromatherapy in the room. You can have a little diffuser or wearing it. It's very, can either be relaxing or uplifting, whatever is the best for you. And in Ayurveda, like I said, we make use of the senses to balance ourselves and to increase the sattva. So we use aromatherapy for the sense of smell. We use there's Vedic melodies called Gandharva Ved, and they're wonderful for just cultivating that quality of sattva in the atmosphere. And then we connect with that, and it increases the sattva in our own consciousness. There's a different melody for each time of the day, and you can even listen to it just not even audibly, just a very faint melody in the background, and it's just so wonderful to have that. It's very balancing. So a very important way of keeping yourself balanced is to exercise. The yoga is very important, and also just everyone really should have, at least 30 minutes or hopefully even more than that of doing something vigorous, it doesn't have to be, it can even be relaxing depending on your body type, but just walking, preferably outside if the weather's decent, even if it's not. But just 30 minutes of walking is really good for most any body type, and especially a morning talk in the rising sun, and especially kind of walking towards the rising sun, towards the east, is considered to be a very beneficial for uplifting your mood and keeping it that way. It can create a positive mood for the whole day, just getting out there and taking a walk. For people with depression, especially heavy kapha-type depression, exercising even twice a day, a short session of exercise twice a day is often recommended for that invigorating effect and to help ward off sluggishness. So I'm going to talk next about herbal supplements. Could you put up the slide, please? So in Ayurveda, we have a number of very traditional herbs that we recommend for mental health. Ashwagandha is an important one, very important one, very special herb. And it, as it says in the chart, supports memory, enhances mental alertness, and balances vata. It's very good for anxiety, depression, and insomnia. This is also it's found in the supplement Worry-Free Tablets. So that's an excellent herb that we recommend for people who have especially anxiety or even some depression or some memory problems. If that's not available, though, that you can also just use the ashwagandha on its own. Next slide, please. Brahmi is a wonderful rasayana. It's known as a brain tonic, calms the mind, promotes memory and intellect, and decreases vata. It's also very good for anxiety, depression, and insomnia. It's and you could use this one on it's used in combination with other herbs sometimes, but you can also use it on its own. Intelligence Plus is a supplement that's available that's also available that has Brahmi in it, I believe. So the next slide, please. Gotu kola is the main ingredient in this herbal supplement we see right here, which is called Mind Plus Syrup. It also has yes, that's Gotu kola is the main ingredient. Promotes focus, concentration, and long-term memory. It's also very good for depression and also anxiety. We use a number of aromas also. It's very good to utilize aromas for anxiety and depression. One is Lang Lang aroma. Another one is spikenard or jatamansi. These are very nice, relaxing, have a relaxing and mood elevating effects. So that's it. I want to introduce next one of our fellows, the fellows in our program, Dr. Lopez Pastrana. She's a psychiatrist who practices psychiatry in Philadelphia. As I said, she's a fellow in our program, and she'll be sharing a bit about her experience in our fellowship. Welcome, Dr. Pastrana.
Thank you so much, Dr. Leslie. I'm Jahaira Lopez Pastrana. I'm one of the fellows. I'm a consultation licensed psychiatrist. So my subspecialty is focused on taking care of the medically ill. So it's kind of the interface between medicine and mental health. My journey into Ayurveda started around 2015 when I started to practice yoga, the sister science of Ayurveda. So I had like great teacher that had a lot of knowledge about Ayurveda, and I started to like practice for myself, and I just found that was like very helpful for my health. So I started to look for a fellowship because I was looking for like starting to implement this kind of like practices in my own practice as a psychiatrist. And I was looking, and finally I found the fellowship. One of the biggest concern that I had is that I was looking for an integrated fellowship, but I was very focused in Ayurveda. It was very hard to find. And finally I found Maharishi, and I was like, oh my God, I found it. So we have a great faculty. I really enjoy the fellowship. The curriculum is well prepared, is very comprehensive. It's a curriculum that is for people, for healthcare practitioners that are busy like all of us. So it's easy to just catch every week with our assignment and everything. One of the things that we enjoy the most is that we have live webinar every other week with the faculty and like a variety of speakers. So this is very like meaningful for us because we feel that, okay, we are like learning like every week, every other week. During the October, we did our practical week in the Maharishi University campus, and this was a great experience. We learned a lot about the pulse diagnosis. We're still learning, of course. We had a great experience. So how I am implementing this in my own practice, so more easy than I was thought. So for example, they describe, I focus on every patient on daily routine, like go to sleep around 10 p.m. Of course, just depends. Some people like try to not do it like after 11. Just wake up around before 6 a.m. Just drink warm water with lemon and honey in the morning to start scrape the ama, as they mentioned, that is like kind of the toxins in our body. like breakfast, the lunch, at the main meal of the day. This is something that is very helpful. Use the CCF tea that help with digestion. Like this is a tea that have coriander, cumin, and fennel. The yoga and the TM. Avoid the raw food. But one of the most important things that I have learned is like now when I have patient, for example, if I have a patient with anxiety, I started to think like, let me see how is Vata, and start to think about modalities like Vata pacifying diet, about like aromatherapy, probably just lavender, and start to educate the patient about what other thing other than the common medication that we use, about the SSRIs or maybe the benzos that most people are looking for. But we have I have a lot of other modalities that I can offer to the patient. For example, if I have a patient who comes with a lot of irritability or problem with anger, I immediately start to think about, okay, probably I need to pacify Pitta, what kind of modalities I can offer to the patient. As they mentioned, if I have a patient who comes more with depression, so immediately I start thinking about Kapha. So at the beginning, I was a little bit like how I'm going to just put all of this together, but I have to tell that has been pretty easy to just combine the modern medicine with Ayurveda. And this has been my experience. I have been implementing what I'm learning like throughout the whole year. So I'm expecting to just keep learning for the rest of the year for the extraordinary faculty that we have. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you, Dr. Pastrana. And we're very glad to have such a dynamic faculty and such wonderful fellows. Here you see us all together at our clinical week on campus last October. Boy, was that a lot of fun. I think we can open the floor up now for some questions.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Elder. And as we come to the end of today's insightful and enriching webinar on anxiety, depression, and mental health, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to all of the esteemed speakers for sharing your profound knowledge and experience. Your contribution have really, truly enlightened us on how the integrative approach, especially Ayurveda, can play an important role in the mental health care field. And thank you, Dr. Pastrana, for sharing your valuable experience on how the program has helped you in your practice and how it has helped your patients. And also, before we move into the Q&A section, I am excited to share that the fellowship program in Integrative Medicine and Ayurveda for doctors and advanced practice providers will be starting back up this fall, 2024. And you can use the link in the chat to view additional information about the program and also sign up. If you're interested in deepening your understanding about and expertise about this field, this is a wonderful opportunity to join us. Additionally, for those who might have missed any part of today's session or want to revisit previous live webinars, you can find them on our YouTube channel. Please ensure to also subscribe, please, to be notified about future videos that will be uploaded. And that is it. We're going to go ahead and open the floor for questions. You can also raise your hand, please. I do have a few questions here in the Q&A section that I'm going to go ahead and read off. One moment, please. Okay, the first question is, if a patient is already on antidepressants, how might you go about transitioning to these modalities, or perhaps tapering the meds for the patient?
Well, I'll start with a comment, and then I'll bet you a number of people want to comment on that. I think that's a very individualized decision. It depends on what the medications are, how long the patient has been on the medications, and the like. Often we start with diet, lifestyle, and meditation. And again, it's individualized, but over time, when patients are able to make lifestyle changes, perhaps add some herbal supplements, and they're feeling better, then we can try to start tapering their medications, depending on the situation. So typically, a 6-week trial of a program, if there's stability or improvement, try tapering the medication, say cut it in half. If there's stability and improvement after, say, 6 weeks, can further taper, something like that. It varies by person, but we certainly do have luck. I mean, it's very common for people to come in wanting to taper their medications, but wanting and needing something, and by giving the we can give them a holistic program which gets to the root of their problem, and we do have success in tapering patients off their medications in the realm of mental health, gastrointestinal disease, hypertension, and the like. Anyone else? No.
Thank you, Dr. Elder. Well, we have a few more questions, I think just enough to get us to the time in 10 minutes. Does Ayurveda recommend any type of psychotherapy or counseling, perhaps, for patients?
I think that just in general, I think that a lot of people just using their meditation, meditation can be making sure that they're practicing it correctly. That for a lot of people can help. But I think that I think that counseling can be actually very important for some people, and that they shouldn't like just traditional counseling, especially if, say, if they've had some trauma, some PTSD, or I mean, what I'm trying to say is that a lot of when people start meditation and incorporate all these modalities and being on a proper diet and getting their exercise, a lot of people find, and the herbal supplements, a lot of people find that it can really improve their situation. They may not need counseling, but I think that there are some people that do need just regular counseling, in addition to all of these other modalities, Ayurvedic modalities. Does anybody else have any opinions on that?
I can add that, for example, I didn't see when we are talking about like kapha depression, I see that when we talk about behavioral activation, is one of the modalities that is pretty recommended in like cognitive behavioral therapy. So I have been like finding a lot of like congruences in what Ayurveda said, not specifically with the name that we know in modern medicine, but yes, we can see, like, for example, when we talk about the thoughts, is the same that we talk about in like cognitive behavioral therapy. So I have been just trying to kind of connect what aspect of Ayurveda is what we know with different names in psychotherapy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can the participants still apply for the program this year in the fall?
Yes, definitely. We are accepting applications. We already have people who have been accepted and have been registered, and we are continuing to accept applications through, we're kind of approaching a little bit of a deadline through middle to end July. So we encourage everyone here, if you're interested, please click on the link, please apply. Please tell your friends, your colleagues who might also be interested in this. And, we want to spread the word. And it's a very simple process. Once you click on the link, it takes you step by step in the application process. And you'll have a little interview with Dr. Charles. And you can have any of your questions answered in a one-to-one interview in that way also. And we are so excited to have you in the fellowship program. And there is a whole group waiting for you when you apply, a whole community.
Thank you, Dr. Wegman. And once you click the link, there will be an orange button that says apply. And I believe there is a $20 fee for you to apply. Is that correct, Dr. Elder? Is that still the case? And just fill out the application.
Right. Applying is quick and easy, $20, and it's not a complicated application. For the fellowship, then you need to submit a copy of your active license and a transcript. Shouldn't take long.
Thank you so much. How much does the study time, how much study time is required for the fellowship program. And I guess they're wondering if it's still manageable to still practice medicine while attend the fellowship program as a student.
Dr. Jahaira, would you mind commenting?
Yes, I would say like it's completely like manageable. Like I have a full-time job as a faculty. I was the program director of a fellowship, and I'm still able to just like invest time on my own like preparation for the fellowship. Usually I would say like probably like no more than 10 hours a week that you can like need to spend like studying for the fellowship. But it's so like, for me, it's kind of a pleasure. It's not like it's something that I just like distract me a lot, but it's totally like doable, and you can continue working without any problem, I would say. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And we do have a few of our fellows who have gave their opinions on this. Again, you can find that on our YouTube channel. So you can go ahead and head on over after this fellowship and watch a few of those. They're pretty fun. We have two more questions. What type of things do you learn during the residential program on campus? And maybe Dr. Pastrana, you can also comment a little bit on this too as one of the fellows.
Yes, well, during the whole week, oh my God, we learned a lot. We learned about, obviously we had a lot of lectures, but also we have like practical session. We just practiced like doing an like integrative evaluation, like taking the polls, reading the polls. We learned a little bit about the Panchakarma. We went into the Panchakarma clinic. We learned about like transcendental meditation. We practiced transcendental meditation as a group. That was like an amazing experience. We learned about aromatherapy. We learned a lot about cooking with Dr. Leslie. She did a lot of like recipe for us. So it's a kind of an intense week, and you had a lot of knowledge. I was very impressed with the learning experience during the practical week.
Thank you, Dr. Pastrana.
One thing I'd like to say about the clinical week is that it's experiential, and this is very important. So a lot of the modalities, when you go to implement integrative Ayurveda into practice, a lot of it's what you're going to do is going to be based on your own experience. And so we try to, in our clinical ways, provide as much experience as possible. So we talk about aromatherapy. We have aroma oils that we sample. We talk about Amapachana, which is a home detoxification program. And there are assignments during the week. These are some of the home Amapachana techniques we recommend to our patients. Try it. We prepare things, home remedies. For example, we'll give our patients spice mixes to put on their food based upon which type of doshic digestive tendency they have. So during our fellowship, we mixed these spice mixes, and everyone, whatever their body type was, took some of the spice mix home. And all these things that we learned to experience ourselves, and that becomes the basis for our understanding the power of these modalities, and for inspiring us to recommend them to our patients. The other thing that we've only just touched upon is a key skill that you'll learn in our fellowship is pulse diagnosis. So according to the Charaka Samhita, everything that you need to know about a patient you can learn by assessing their radial pulse. So we begin to learn that skill across the 2 years of our fellowship and to cultivate it so that by innocently assessing what's happening with the patient's radial pulse using these 3 fingers right here, and you learn how to do it, we come to a very sophisticated and subtle understanding of what's happening in the patient's physiology And the technique enables us to detect imbalances in the physiology before they manifest as disease. And so now you have a whole new, it's a new game in your practice, because not only are you treating illness, but you're detecting imbalances, you're detecting that VADA imbalances before it manifests as an anxiety disorder. Okay, so let's head that off at the pass, and you can take steps to very targeted steps to do that. So and the other thing that we do at our residential week is we get to know each other very well, and that sense of community is priceless.
Thank you, Dr. Elder. And we have one very last question before we close off. They ask about Vedic counseling. Are there any Vedic counselors available to supplement the Ayurveda and TM together?
I can just maybe try to, yeah, there is something general, but there isn't a specific program. There's some talks of it being in the works to provide something like that. It's a beautiful question, and that's something I think that will be more unfolded in the future, as that is a whole course in and of itself, in a whole art form. So I think it is something that will be unfolded, but it's not quite there yet.
Thank you, Dr. Wegman. Just another course to look forward to. So stay tuned, everyone. Thank you. That's all the time that we have. Any final remarks, Dr. Elder, Dr. Leslie, Dr. Wegman, or Dr. Pastrana, before we close off?
Thank you all for attending. It's been wonderful sharing this time with you, and I hope you found the information useful and uplifting.
Thank you. And can they reach out to Dr. Elder if they have any questions through email? Okay,
I will type my email in the chat.
And everyone says thank you in the chat section.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. See you guys in the next live webinar.